Thanks for the opportunity to come and speak to you today. So, when Jess first suggested this, I was trying to think what would be a useful topic to talk about. So, I thought it would be useful, particularly for those that are thinking about this, to what's like as an interim, and what my experiences are, and how we can potentially hit the ground running, or how I endeavour to hit the ground running. But just first of all, just give you a little bit of an introduction to my life as an interim. So I started in this role in August 2015 after having 19 years in full-time employment in local government. Now I sort of fell into it in a way because what had happened was I was working at Wandsworth Borough Council, and madly I moved from the south of England and up to Shetland Islands. So I had about 18 months commuting to and fro, which, needless to say, is probably the longest commute in the country. And it got to a point whereby the council was going to go through a major restructure. They wanted me to stay, but I quite rightly I had to tell them that if a job came up near home, I was gonna take it. So they gave me the brown envelope, and I took the opportunity to go. And at the same time, I contacted a colleague that I work with at Mid Sussex District Council and just said to him, if there's anything work comes up in your world, just give me a call. Well, I hadn't actually left Wandsworth before I had a call. So straight back down to London. 3.5 years between Barnet, Barking, and Dagenham and Thurrock, commuting to and fro. So my commute didn't get any shorter. After that, I needed a break, so I took about 6 months at home painting the house, enjoying the scenery, and then had another session between Edinburgh, York, Sunderland, Armagh, Banbridge, and Craigavon, and then another break. And then the last three, as you can see there, Dumfries and Galloway, Manchester City, Mid and East Antrim. So just a bit about these councils. Most of them were, I was asked to go there to help sort out a challenge, which I'll come back to in a little bit. Very rarely did I ever get to, or was I asked to go and fill a gap. Mostly it's if there's a challenge that needs to be sorted out, or there is some kind of transformation that needs to be undertaken. Those are the reasons that me as an interim, I tend to get those employments. The only exception to the rule, I think, is probably Sunderland. So Sunderland was a really bizarre one. I was asked by the chief exec to do an investigation. So again, depending on what your background is, you might be called in to do something similar to that. So this was an investigation. It was a whistleblowing around bullying and also non-compliance uh, on their statutory stuff for transport. So that was an interesting one, very stressful, but it was an interesting one to get involved with. So just in relation to if you are thinking about looking into the world of interim work, I thought I'd put down here some key considerations. The first one I think is probably the most important. Do I need a stable, steady work life? The only reason I'm saying that is, although I've been very lucky, I've more or less had work all the time since 2015. I do have colleagues that have had massive gaps between assignments. So if you do need a stable, steady work life, then you need to seriously think about whether that is the route that you want to take, because you have to be prepared that there may be gaps in your work pattern. The second one, and this is probably more for those that are not local like me, do my family commitments enable me to stay away from home, to work away from home? Again, you just need to factor that in. If you have young children, and you're going to be away from home for 2 or 3 days a week, then maybe that's not the best route at this point in time. The third one, that again I think is an important one, what's my personality type? And what I mean by that is every time you go somewhere, you have to be a chameleon. You basically got to adapt your way of doing things to fit in with the environment that you're going into. If you're shy and retiring, then that's going to be a challenge. Likewise, if you're a quite sort of an outgoing, bombastic type personality, that might be a struggle as well. So it's having that chameleon type personality, I think, really helps, where you can adapt yourself to get the best out of people. The next one, again, I've put that in there because sometimes you can be a bit embarrassed. So before you even start, you need to sort of get your head around what's my financial worth? What's my day rate going to be? What are the deal breakers for them saying, well, that's too much money, and they try to negotiate you down, those sorts of things. Because I'm sure Jess would be able to tell you this, but there is a very fine balance between being too cheap and too expensive. And getting that balance is the key thing that I found in this work. If you are really good at your job, then you can demand the day rate that is appropriate that goes with that, and don't be embarrassed to do that, because when you get into the interim world, you are expected to deliver. So that's just something to bear in mind. And then just the last one there. And then again, this is probably for people like myself where I live. What are your deal breakers? So I personally will only ever do 3 and 2. So 3 on site, 2 working away. If they want me to do 4, then I just won't do it, because there needs to be a bit of time where you're away from the workplace. Another deal breaker for me is I won't do less than 6 months. If they want me to do 3, then I'm just not interested. By the time you've sorted everything out, you're finishing up that assignment. It's not worth it. Another one for me, good transport links. So airport, train, those sorts of things, very important. And then again, because I'm working away from home, I don't want to be paying a fortune in hotel fees. So just think about that as well. So the next one here, life as an interim. So I've got 3 key points that I just want to run through here. It's challenging, it's rewarding, and it can also be frustrating. So what do I mean by those 3 things? Well, first of all, challenging. As I mentioned at the start there, most of my assignments have been to either go in to be a bit of a troubleshooter or to transform a service. Now, that in itself is very challenging. You're entering into a challenging environment, and in doing so, you have to bear in mind what that is like for the people that you're going into. They might have been going through a bit of a hard time. Some of their key colleagues may not longer be there for whatever reasons. So there is always going to be an element of mistrust. Who is this guy coming in? Is he going to be wielding the big axe? Is he going to make our life a misery? Those sorts of things can be quite challenging for you as an individual. They can take a lot from you personally if you do not think about that before you go in there. The other challenge, if you're looking at it from transformation perspective, you're going to need to get buy-in, and you're going to need to get buy-in from a very early start, because it doesn't matter how good you are, how good your ideas are. If you don't get buy-in from your colleagues, you're never going to be able to get over the line with what you need to do. And then the last part is, again, on the challenging aspect of it, you are there as the resident expert. You're getting paid good money and you have no time to settle in. You essentially got to hit the ground running from day one. So you're going to be required to assess what's going on very quickly, identify a workable solution, communicate that effectively, and to deliver a solution. Let's say if you've only got 6 months, you'll be surprised how quickly that 6 months can disappear, very quickly indeed. But conversely, it can also be very rewarding. And it's one of the reasons I enjoy doing this work. It is an opportunity to lead on a transformation of a service, and it's such a great feeling to see that sort of almost come out of the ground, to see people engaged in that process, to really feel like they're going to do something different. It's also an opportunity to lift a demoralized group of individuals into what I believe is a strong, well-adjusted team that works together, supports each other, and really they would do anything for each other. If you can get that unit, that's a real sense of achievement at the end of your tenure. Now, one of the ways that I've measured success is when I'm still contacted by colleagues that I may have worked with years ago, but they will still phone me up. They will still ask me for advice. They will still tell me what's going on at the location that we used to work at. So for me, that's really good. I still get those calls now, and that is a very rewarding part about doing interim work. And then there's the frustrating bit, I'm afraid. Um, the longer you do this, the more you realize that there are personality types that are replicated. So you'll come across people that say and do the same things as you've experienced elsewhere. They will say things that you know what the outcome's going to be because you've been through it several times before. That can be really frustrating. Another frustrating thing is to give advice which is ignored. One council I worked at, I would go home on a Wednesday having agreed something, come back on Monday, and it'd be totally different. Now that can be really frustrating, and after a while you think, "Do you know what, I'm wasting my time here." So you have to be in a position whereby you just draw a line under it and move on. Not an easy thing to do, but sometimes it's not just about the money, it's about the outcome that you're looking for. Something that frustrates me more than anything is often not seeing the fruits of your labor. So those that are in the interim world, they probably understand this quite well. If you are brought into an organization to help them get to a place, what often happens is the council will suddenly realize that they think they know where they are, they know the direction of travel, they've got everything in hand, they no longer need you. And then they terminate your contract, or your contract's come to an end, but you never see the end of it. You never see all that hard work that you put in and up front. You never see the outcome of that solution. And what contributes to that frustration is you find out after you've left that they haven't done what you've advised them to do. They haven't put in place what you said needed to happen for them to get the outcome. And then they just end up going back to where they started. So my advice for anybody that finds themselves in this place is don't take it personally, because if you take it personally, it can be very demoralizing on you as an individual. For me, as long as you've done your best, you've given them all the advice that they can possibly have to get them to where they need to be. There's nothing more you can do about it. As I say, you've done your very best. So hit the ground running. So I've got a few slides here that these are the things I do, which you might want to tap into if you get yourself or you want to go down this route. Now, as soon as you get nominated, start your research. So Jess will phone you up. She'll put your name in the hat, and she will say, right, this is where it is. So start your research. So where is it? Where's the location? What are the transport links? Where will I be based? What's the accommodation that is available in those areas? Because sometimes it doesn't matter how good an opportunity it looks like, it just doesn't work for you. I remember one time I did an interview in Northamptonshire, but the transport links were so terrible. It was a flight into Midlands there somewhere, but it was about a 3.5 hour drive to get to the council offices. It just wasn't an opportunity that I was prepared to take because it just didn't work for me. And then the second one here, to hit the ground running, if you're called for an interview, obtain as much information as you can beforehand. Now, thankfully, in this modern technology world that we live in, that's quite easy now. So what I do, I'll go onto the website, council's website. I will look at all the reports. I will watch some of the committee meetings just to get a feel for what is going on in that council and to get a sense of what the members are like, what the officers are like that I potentially could be working with. So if you do get an interview, which is great, usual protocol normally applies. So it'll be a formal interview. So it's the usual things that you'll get asked the questions, and then you obviously have to answer appropriately as you would any other interview. But you're in a slightly different place. You're there, you're going in there as an interim, you're going in there as the expert. So make sure you've got some really good questions. And those questions are going to be based on the research that you've already done, because you are looking to really draw out in that time that you have with them what the actual challenge is, what the actual issues are. So what I find is, as the expert, you essentially need to become the interviewer. You need to interview those people that are essentially interviewing you, because it may be that you hear stuff that you think, actually, I don't think I can be of any help here, or they're not listening in, or they already have an informed view of the direction of travel that's not going to work with the way that you believe the outcome should be. Now, this is a word of caution, and I know I've made this mistake myself. So, depending on what level you're going into, um, try not to undermine the person that you may potentially be your boss. That's easy to do. So let me think of an example. So let's say, for argument's sake, you've operated at a director's level, but you're going in as a senior manager, and the director is the one interviewing you. You don't want to come across as you know more than what he does or she does, because they will feel a little bit intimidated by you, and chances are you won't get the job. So it's just something that it's easily done. So whatever level you're going into, just be aware of the type of questions that you're going to ask, and maybe giving too much of an opinion on what should and shouldn't be done, because you can undermine yourself because they feel a bit intimidated. So before you start, again, this is something I do. You may have better ways of doing it. Obtain as much information as possible. So get a contact with the contracting authority, get them to send you reports, structures, budgets, business plans, KPIs, all those sorts of things. They're going to help you when you walk in the door. You'll already have an informed idea of what needs to happen and where the challenges are, where the roadblocks are. Have a clear plan. It's going to have to be a little bit flexible, but have a clear plan and on how you intend to proceed when you get through that door. Because as I said before, you do not have time to settle in. You've got to hit the ground running. You've got to come in there and start the business straight away. So the next one is your start day. So I always like to have an informal briefing with the person, my direct report, on day one, because although you've had that interview with them, you get to learn an awful lot more in that informal briefing. You can ask the difficult questions, ask what's going on, where the challenges are, who are the people that are the players, who are the ones that are going to cause problems or be a bit difficult. That's a really, for me, that's a really important starting point in terms of what comes next. Because as soon as I've had that, then I will be looking to set up one-to-one meetings with my direct ports. Now, I have a formula that I use with that, and again, it might work for you, it might not. So I will sit down with all of my direct reports one on one, and just give them a bit of a briefing of who I am, what I expect from them, which is no surprises, and absolute trust, and loyalty, and also what that I'm not going to do their job for them. So that sets the ground rules from the very start, and I give them the opportunity to tell me what's making their life difficult or what I can do to make their life better. So that sort of sets the relationship with my one-to-ones. Now, depending again on what level you are entering into an organization, I also like to meet with elected members. They look at the world through a different lens, as you know. If you are involved in frontline services, trade unions is also a very useful lens to look through. They will tell you the world from their perspective. They will tell you where they believe things need to be improved. And I think also as well, if you are involved with frontline services, which often I am, I like to go and meet the guys on the ground. What I found in a lot of organisations is those at the senior levels, they don't tend to get to go and see the guys. And when you do, you start to build up the relationship with those individuals as well. Lastly, their team meetings. I get those in the diary as soon as possible. As I said, you've got your 6 months. You need that buy-in. You need to get that shared vision in place, because after you've gone, they're the ones that are going to need to pick up the baton and move along with it. And then this is probably, I think this might be my last slide, and I think this one for me is really important. So being an interim, without question, is full on. You're getting paid good money, and those that are employing you expect you to deliver. So I've just put this one in here. Make sure you make time to plan, to reflect, to recuperate, and then go again, which is why I do the 3 and 2. So for me, those 2 days that I have working from home enable me to do this. They give me the time to calm down a little bit, to plan what's going to happen next, to reflect on what's already happened, to sort of regenerate, and then Monday morning go again.